Okay, well, it's 10 o'clock, so I think we can call the meeting to order. Item is a roll call
Okay, Ben Bernstein,
here.
Alan Smith is absent, David Hickey,
Here.
Susan Hilgers here, Merrick Lipson,
Here.
Mark Neiman,
Here.
Dan Ring.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so next item is the minutes of our November 4th meeting, which was the last meeting. I've taken a look at it. Does anyone have any changes to document? Obviously, we will proceed and that's right. I think we actually need to
You need a motion?
yeah.
Maybe motion later. Approve the
Okay,
minutes.
David, and second?
Second.
Oh, that was, oh, yeah, okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, you want a roll call? Here we go. Papers here. All right, roll call on the minutes, Ben,
Yes.
David Hickey,
Yes.
Susan Hildreth, yes, Merrick Lipson,
Yes.
Mark Neiman,
Yes.
Dan Ring.
Yes.
Thank you. And there are no residents here to make comments, so there's no resident comment.
I guess under announcements, I'll just mention that one of the items I was catching up on was our annual report to the board. So I did do a draft of that, and I'll hand that out later on, so that I can send that to the board for the I think it's the February 27th meeting. And I think that's it. Anything else that will be looking at the agenda items. So the next item is NetSuite project update ish with Todd Lamb.
My absolute favorite topic.
Yeah.
So I guess the first thing to say is that we're live.
Yeah.
So, you know, we did go live in first part of January, which is what our goal was. But obviously the scale and scope of this implementation, we knew that would be, you know, it's gonna be an uphill battle for, you know, perceivably for sure the first quarter, probably well into the second quarter, because as you all know, we're phasing this rolling in. You know, the first thing was turning on our chart of accounts in the jail side for collection of cash and payment of cash. We did have a hiccup in the beginning of the year with collecting the ACH direct debits from the mutuals. Wasn't foreseen, but you know, I think everyone here is pretty familiar, but you know, trying to create this ERP three-dimensional database really with all the different separate databases out there, right? So where you have an entity or a trust that has a beneficiary or trustee, and you have an owner, and that owner may not live in a residence, and that owner may live in one but own multiple residents. And so where we had the hiccup was where that owner had multiple residences and kind of threw a wrench in the works. You know, obviously some of these things are not, you know, we can't actually test taking people's money twice. So we're going to test it again here this week. So there will be some challenges, and, you know, it's just too big of an implementation, and, you know, it's not like it's just going to go 100% smoothly, but, you know, at some point we're in the pool, we're swimming, you know, we have everybody actually, you know, in the production environment, you know, they're working on their own workflows. You know, we have a whole staff of individuals and actually an organization that's outside of the testing, has never actually used it, right? So we're training and constantly training. So, you know, it's all, I would say it's still all positive, you know, it's just a huge undertaking, right? And we're gonna have some hiccups, and but I think that's to be expected. So where we are right now, obviously NetSuite itself is live. When I speak to that, I'm speaking to the first phase of the go live, which is the accounting APAR. The space management piece is also live. We are currently working and testing, and we have to turn on the work order system. This is one of the phased approaches, so that field service management module is coming online. I'd like to think we're gonna actually go live early in March. Right now, we're still, Sharon won't let me put anything until the end of March, but I'm not gonna put an April 1st Fool's date out there. Obviously, the SquareWorks is also live. That is our more advanced check writing, optical scanning. Everything like that. That's true. Also has to be tweaked and configured a little bit. We're missing one sales tax line. But we're able to scan in multiple pages, everything's super accurate, especially when it comes to utility bills, which is so much hand coding and everything else like that. So it's really pretty exciting where we're going. It's just kind of right now, we're in the middle of a perfect storm with maintaining GenArc and trying to close out in GenArc and still maintain two systems, right? And unfortunately, reality is staffing, and illness and holidays. And, it's not that that's not a known thing. It's just something that happens. And, so we're working through it as best we can. I'm still looking for a couple open positions I'm trying to replace. And obviously those positions are great because we're going to be recruiting for NetSuite experience. But that doesn't mean that there's anyone out there that actually has past GenArc experience, right? And so to bring someone in from a legacy system we'll never use and try to take people off current duties to try to train doesn't make a lot of sense. But in terms of like bringing someone into that has report writing, so we can actually start creating all the financials and stuff like that, make a lot of sense. So sleeves are rolled up and it's just multiple jobs for everybody right now. And so I think it's very encouraging, but at the same time, when 6 months from now, we'll look back and we'll have a very robust, great system. It's just right now we're in the throes of, I think this January felt like 2 months to a lot of my staff. So anyhow, this, you kind of see this from the project timeline. Sligo, the middleware, is actually, I think we're working on little bugs. That is actually what's letting all the other APIs, everything else talk to us. We're still gonna, we'll get into phase 2, rolling out, how it connects and talks to, Dwelling Live. We're working, that's all there. Working on, the public security side. We have 4UP connectivity. We have, the fitness connection. So all that stuff is out there in the works. Obviously, the other one that's coming in is on phase 2 is obviously you'll see the financial planning and budgeting. That's what I'm probably most excited about. As we start looking at how we actually roll out tools to the community, Workday and the module for the financial planning and analysis piece is nice because it pretty much has, unlike NetSuite where there's a fee per user, it has pretty much unlimited view users, right? So that means that is a tool where we can, to mirror basically everything into NetSuite, put it into the financial future planning thing and really generate a lot of access for view access and drill down capabilities into the actual chart accounts. So we're still working through exactly how that looks in Q3 for the actual mutual boards have access to data in real time and do some things like that. So that we're still trying to figure out where the best solution is at between being in the financial planning module or being in the actual NetSuite modules. We're working on that because obviously there's just a cost to users in NetSuite. It's basically $1,800 per user.
Per user.
Per year. So versus unlimited view access and Workday one. So, but that's probably where it's really gonna be exciting. So obviously that's scheduled to be fully on board and tested before we get into budget season. And that's really where we're gonna start rolling out those 3-year forecasts. However, the nice part on NetSuite is obviously some of the tools we'll have with purchase ordering and 3-way matching in terms of the audit committee, all those things are in the works. And I think that is fantastic in terms of documenting our internal controls. So we get into that topic tonight and really redoing, looking at individual roles and functions with what their dashboard looks like for their job and how we actually have set up the administration rights, right, to have better audit protection. So that's really exciting. We did do a presentation on the cybersecurity piece for the President's Forum. And I think that's kind of been understated, but it's out there underlying everything we're doing, which is also why we're going into NetSuite. So we touched on that, in this committee, and obviously we'll be refreshing that as we move forward. And there are still some decisions to be made in terms of the resident portal and some community services, software selection and implementation that's still being vetted, right? So I will know a lot more here in a next, probably the middle of next month. Right now it's I'm pretty much trying to leave a lot of them alone just so we can keep working. But it's pretty good. So in terms of actual bullet points kind of here, You know, right now we're expanding functionality for accounting and MOD, right? We're looking at how we actually not just have the data, pay bills and cut checks, but it's also what does those financial statements look like? What does that 5,500 packet look like to the mutuals? Right? How do we go through that compliance piece and pull out delinquency reports, pull out aging reports, pull out, you know, all the bank reconciliation piece for the mutuals, all that kind of reporting. Obviously, the fact that we'll actually have a true cash flow statement now, and I'm probably the most excited about. And then, you know, we're working on the alterations and resale will be coming on next to the phase, determining whether to load historical data. Obviously, from a historical data standpoint, I think everyone on this committee certainly understands. We are closing 2024 in GenArc, right? So as we move through the audits, both on the mutual side and on our GRF side, you know, we will be maintaining both systems until we have a complete close, and that includes going through audit adjustments, right? So as we move into getting audit adjustments and, you know, let's say we finish all the audits in end of April, you know, May, June, we'll be doing those audit adjustments. At that point, we will have a mirrored, basically year end. And at that point, we'll look at what exactly and how much more history we want to pull in from GenArc to basically then put it on the shelf. Okay, Mary.
For the financial statements that the mutuals get in February for closing January, will those be in that suite?
It will.
When do you expect them to be out? Okay, answer later.
Yeah. I'm shooting for that. So the challenge from there is obviously just the close functionality. Where somebody's right now getting the processes actually like paying the bills and stuff. One of the things we're doing though is on the, you know, the new chart of accounts we have is really great, right? So all the infrastructure is there. So we're actually utilizing, you know, pretty much someone in NetSuite over the next couple of weeks to actually put together what that 5,500 packet will look like. So instead of pulling Amanda off, you know, she'll just be focusing on the actual close versus where the challenge was of her focusing on the close. And then, okay, now how does the financials look, right? So we're kind of working on that in parallel because technically she should be able just to close, for example, GRF, and we should already have the, you know, the reporting, because all the reporting is not, it's not just canned, right? You want to, you know, have it so it's, you know, kind of customizable. The other thing is we're working on right now, myself and Bud are working on actually getting all the budgets loaded, all the seasonality.
Sure.
So we're applying all that. So the first financials actually have the budget variances. So just it's a big lift, but we're moving forward. Questions?
So related to the audit, the
Yeah.
2024 audit,
Mhm.
in the past, we reviewed the financial statement draft in April. Is that still going to be possible?
Yeah, so I kind of want to, we can just bring this up. I don't know. Okay, so I met with McCare. You know, you guys, I think we all realize, we talked about my meeting's gonna blur that Bob had left CBiz,
Yeah.
Bob's returned right again. And McCare is taking point, which is great. She's the one that worked for this. She's just phenomenal, and her and Amanda speak the same language. Which is not always the case, but I will just go through. So I met with her today, Ben. And so timing wise, I do recommend that we push our April meeting back to the 21st. So she tried to push out her schedule to just accommodate everything we're going through, right? We actually had the meeting scheduled, I think, for the 7th. And I would like to push it back to so if we look at the calendar that kind of McCare and I worked on, is that planning work through would be 310, the field work and detailed testing 311 or 331. Hopefully we might be able to do that on 324. The draft to the audit committee would be on 417 then, with the meeting on 421, and then due to the bank on 430. So
you want to move the meeting to the 21st?
first with a draft going to the committee on 417.
Okay.
We're just gonna need a little extra breathing.
Try to make. Guess we'll make that work.
And then obviously, if anyone wants to see kind of this, it kind of goes through what we're doing and the working and testing. It's kind of just a summary. I'm happy to send this up. I mean, if you guys just want to kind of chew on, you know, some of the tasks that we're going through. But the biggest thing I wanted to talk about today was just kind of the new dates after I talked to McCare, everything. So hopefully we can fit that all into Deborah. fit that into a new meeting agenda
I will
or schedule. Yeah. We had advance notice until I got this back from the carriers we talked about. So that's what I propose.
Looks like I'll just have to adjust my Disneyland trip. Yeah. Which should be doable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then, we would still plan, to present that draft to the end of month board meeting
Mhm.
in April. Okay.
Yep. That's the. Yeah. So.
Oh, and one thing I wanted to ask about that was on, schedule, FSM, the Field Service Management. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so so we had originally, there was original selection done for an application called Shepherd. And when I came on board and when we really started working through some of the implementation of Shepherd, I'll get into what it does in a minute. We realized it wasn't really gonna solve our long-term solution. It was gonna be more of a Band-Aid. And it wasn't the right application selection. So towards the end of September, we pivoted to Field Service Management, which is the actual NetSuite, native NetSuite piece of, basically it's the work order desk. So it's how anything comes in, we schedule any type of maintenance request, how the people go out there with actually in the system live. They look at the project, the job, they have a tablet, they hit the who's on it, who does the service call, how all that work order from building and maintenance is managed and scheduled, right? From both building maintenance and landscaping. So it's really all that field service work that all the Rossmore team does on all the properties goes through Field Service Management. So right now, we're just basically all the costs will still be, journal entry into, we'll have all the information put in that suite, but the actual module will be turned on until the end of March, April, because we pivoted and there's just so much there to turn on. Same with kind of recent alterations. That's kind of a custom piece that been working on that was never scheduled to go in January. But the field service management piece is obviously up here. Yeah, and this piece here. The work order test. So all that, yeah, that whole piece, it's just it is extremely. There's a lot of volume. I mean, they're getting 100+ calls a day, and that's how all that work and all those work orders and sales order desks are flowed throughout to the people in the field that actually go look at, inspect the job, quote the job, how they work with other third-party vendors on those jobs, whether it's hand off. I mean, so it's a very huge piece of what they do up there in their room. So that's, like I said, we're just in the testing UAT of that.
Does that mean everyone's gonna have a tablet when they go out to work on stuff? So we gotta buy.
No, we actually have, yes, we're gonna have to buy some. It was in the original budget and it's not as daunting as you think because there's more, there's not hundreds of people out there.
Yeah, I'm
It's
assuming
a
there's
smaller.
20 people.
You would be surprised how many jobs are going out to. So, let's say it's 20 tablets and we're pretty much getting, I think, another 10 to 12 total. But it's in the budget and they're not really a big cost. But, obviously, if you think about that for the hardware, you also want the right application on that hardware.
You should speed things up.
It's gonna be,
Yeah.
well, and if we hadn't pivoted from Shepherd just wanted to work long term, it didn't have the complexity, didn't have the integration. And we got down in the weeds on that implementation, it wasn't gonna deliver us what we needed. We are just too many transactions, too complex in terms of our business model, in terms of, it's not like we can just go out and buy the canned, package. that we have
QuickBooks.
in the Community license.
QuickBooks?
QuickBooks will not.
Come on.
Yeah, so, and that's your question on that.
All right, any other questions about,
Real quick, I just want one more comment, because now we're here. We are gonna start, this week's, paper on Wednesday. And also, so the first,
Your column.
yeah, my column, I'm gonna write a NetSuite news column every month, the first week in the paper. However, that will also be put onto rossmore.com. And if there's an update that's needed from that's important or, you know, kind of what's going on in NetSuite, I will be updating the online one, and then we'll be redoing a column every first week of every month for not just, you know, like where we are, but also where we're going. I mean, it obviously is a huge change for this community as a whole, where we're going. And so I think having NetSuite news out there is a good, you know, we probably, in hindsight, we could have done that for the coupon and had a better way to communicate out to the community. You know, we struggle with how we just get messaging out to the entire community where it actually affects them like their coupon. The other thing we are also gonna, you'll see in the article this week, we actually brought up a old static landline. It's 925 988 7878. It's gonna be just an outbound messaging line that if there is something that has happened, or if a resident noticed something, they can go there. If there's a real time thing like, hey, your coupon's gonna be delayed for 2 days, I'll leave a message on that outbound line, just to try to get as much messaging out there to the community or channels to keep them updated on what we're doing. Because, you know, we all know in reality, this is gonna be, you know, this is gonna be a year-long process for this year until we really, you know, by the time we get some of these other rossmore.com things, as we fleshed out all the, and fine tune all the applications, all the report writing, and eventually roll it out to mutual directors and stuff to have real-time access to data. You know, it's just gonna be a journey this year. But, you know, as we roll over and we're doing budgets for 2026 and a 3-year business plan forecast and reserve stay is gonna be in there, man, it's gonna be fantastic, so.
Okay, forward. No other questions. Next item is basically an update on the internal control audit. And let me pass this around.
Just get the update on the committee self-assessment.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, all in the self-assessment.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Okay, so then let's go back to that.
Would Alan like to join us here at the table? You're okay, Alan, or come on up here and join us?
With regard to the self-assessment, rep, that due to a series of health challenges, I was not able to do the compilation and analysis that I had intended to present today. So that remains to be done. I am grateful to all of those who submitted the completed questionnaires, and they will be very helpful in identifying best practices that this committee can adopt. There are a few participants here who have not yet submitted their questionnaires. But given how things have worked out, that's not a problem as far as timing is concerned. What may be a problem, I had intended to complete my efforts and present the results to you at our meeting, which was scheduled for April 7th. Learning now that that meeting is going to be on April 21st, unfortunately, I've committed to be out of the country on that date. So it may be that I won't be able to actually present the results to you until our June meeting, but it's not exactly critically time sensitive. So for those who have not yet submitted their questionnaires on a relaxed schedule, I would encourage you to do it, because having everyone's input really does give us a more complete picture, and it allows an apples to apples comparison with our past results where we did have 100% participation. So we'll present that at the first opportunity.
All right, then I think just speaking personally, I thought it was a valuable exercise filling that out. So it would encourage everyone to do it. Okay, so
Can I,
yes,
can I just make a suggestion, maybe Merrick, that you resend it to folks who haven't completed it?
I actually have drafted all of those follow-up messages on my cell phone here, and while you observe this, I will send them out.
Okay, I know it was a while ago, just a suggestion.
I couldn't find the first one and I tracked them down and got the follow-up, and I am one of the delinquent responders, but I also wanted to go through NetSuite filter.
What have you been doing?
I know.
Yeah.
But I do think it's like super, I do think it's a very, very important activity, and I need to get mine turned around.
okay, on the page that I handed out, this is basically a follow-up of what we've discussed before for the internal control audit. And now it ties into another agenda item for today that Jeff has provided an updated ERM and enterprise risk management. So basically what I'm saying here is that we should be refining the parameters of the audit. I think we have general agreement that a new RFP should be prepared. And think that would start, we haven't been able to find the original RFP, but I don't think that's that significant. As a matter of fact, yeah,
I'll look around.
yeah, see, if you
I don't know.
have it,
Maybe
I'd
so.
Glad I have my word for it.
All right, I'll look for it.
I assume it's out there in any case. I think that, you know, a good starting point, sorry. A good starting point is the proposal that we got from CBIZ and then go from there. A whole lot has changed since this was first contemplated and we received that proposal. I've just outlined a number of items here connected to artificial intelligence or that just things that have and ESG, for example, that's another item that I think should be considered in relation to this ERM. So I appreciate any comments on that, and I think we'll be discussing this again so that we effectively use the time prior to 2026. Yeah, so I'd appreciate any comments that anyone has now, but definitely as a, you know, as a follow-up. You know, Merrick passed on some information from the Institute of Internal Auditors. It's relevant to this, and it's definitely some good follow-up. You know, to go beyond just like a cyber attack considerations. And yes,
Can you remind me what ESG stands for?
yeah, environment, social governance. Thank you. So that's something that I don't think that GRF has taken up, but probably should. Yeah.
So then someone is going to be responsible for getting this into the 2026 budget, GRF.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, the RFP should come from finance once
Yeah.
is able to address it. And the audit committee would work with them on that. Yeah.
So I think just in terms of the time frame,
Mm.
unless we have some idea of an estimate, and I don't know if you want to use that, would we have to have some specific information prior to or during the process when the GRF board is developing their 2026 budget.
Yeah,
I mean, I,
you have to give them some.
Yeah.
I think my thought would be if we could actually finalize the RFP and what it looks like, get it out by our April meeting for response back by our June meeting.
Oh, right, okay.
I think we should
Mhm.
keep our pedal on this because, you know, but like I said, not just for the budgeting standpoint for next year, but also for any type of, you know, if we really are committed to trying to get this done in 2026, we should try to get those, I think, numbers into the.
I agree.
That sounds awfully optimistic. though.
I'm very optimistic. I don't have to do that work. I just have to mail a letter out to them. Give us their quotes.
I agree, and as Pam mentioned, from my reading of information from the Institute of Internal Auditors, this is a very dynamic time in the internal auditing profession because of technological changes and because of the implementation of the new standards that the IIA adopted as of the beginning of this year. As a result, I personally am convinced that in budgeting for the 2026 internal audit, we need to free ourselves from the $41,000 estimate that we had with CBES. I anticipate that a thorough and proper examination of GRF internal controls. I can't imagine it being much less than 100,000 from any reputable provider. So obviously the finance committee needs to look at that as doing, but definitely it's got to be more than the original CBES.
We're also gonna have to, we also talked about looking for actually going out to look for quoting audit work too, just.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, yeah, we need to bring that into the conversation as well for next year.
Yeah, and whether it would be the same firms that we would send the RFP to. So a lot of questions. All right, well, unless there's anything else on that, I think the next item on the agenda is an update on the GRF pension.
Stop sharing. That's not what I was trying to do.
Lovely tongue.
Yeah, I was having trouble
Isn't that
getting the
nice?
screen sharing going myself.
For it. This is not that exciting, but so. we'll-
Compared to what?
Compared to, yeah. Okay, so where we are right now on the pension plan, obviously we have, the final form 5500 filing and the final plan on it from CBIZ, right? So those are all gonna, you know, be happening. 11/15 was actually the date the trust closed. So this will cover the 1/1 to 1/11/15. The final, work is undue on 9/15. That should say 25. I think actually Ryan sent me the corrected one. And then the other portion to talk about, we were selected, you know, randomly for audit. What's in progress. So real quick, you know, they have provided, Milliman provided all the initial information. Then we're waiting for the PBGC to send us who they want to test. At that point, you know, what participants we want to review. And as Milliman and Ryan, they said, you know, depending on the start-stop nature of the PBGC, we may hear from them anywhere from 1 to 2 years is a typical time frame on this. So when I say it's not very exciting, I mean, maybe we'll hear from, so they'll get back to us with a testing of participants, which we would then readdress, and that Millman will go through and provide them the testing data on those individuals. This is just gonna be something that's gonna be out there until it isn't. Obviously, I'll keep you guys on the loop until we hear back from the PBGC. We've done everything on our side at this point, right? Everything is kosher with, and obviously this was a pretty clean, we don't have any surprises. There's no expectation this won't just sail through. It's just really another bureaucracy looking at our data and, yeah. So when they pick it back up, I'll let you guys know. Right now, we have turned over what we needed to on that audit, and it's kind of a hurry up and wait.
So just for the record, and maybe I should know this, but the PBGC, pension benefit controllable, what is it?
Yeah,
Pension benefit, guarantee corporation.
Guarantee Corporation. Okay, all right, thank you.
thanks, Ben.
All right. So then, next item on the agenda is, enterprise.
Sorry.
Okay, so we are doing a kind of a road show of the enterprise risk management plan. This is something that we'll do on an annual basis to update this as things change, get new information. It's also a tool that as we do budgeting or make decisions on various things, this plan and identified risk should play a fairly significant role. We do begin the cycle when we go over this with the board during their retreat, and then we'll report out to the various committees on identified. But if, as we discussed, there's things that come up, we're looking to add to the plan from any input from your committee. So just to go through it real quickly, I won't go into every single slide in great detail, but as we go through, if you have questions or comments, please don't hesitate. So the first area that we've recognized is deadly pathogens. This could be on two different sides. Obviously, we saw the pandemic and we all lived through that. This came up just prior to, as a identified risk, just prior to the actual pandemic. So hopefully we don't have that experience again, but we did learn a lot, definitely during that process. The other identified one is if we have a plight that hits all of our trees or our landscaping that needs to, if any of you have been up through the mountains there, you see the plight of the pine trees and so forth, that sort of thing. This is a big one and has been in relation to our insurance coverage as of late, but a catastrophic event. And we cover this in a couple different areas, but currently GRF does not have, does have 5 million in earthquake insurance. That is a small portion of the value of our actual assets. The mutuals do not have any earthquake insurance. So that is a pretty significant risk. If you look at modeling, a earthquake models out as a more significant loss and higher probability than a wildfire.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we talk constantly about wildfires. So we need to continue to monitor our risk, continue to do things to minimize risks to the degree possible. Steps like FireWise and the real focus on mitigation measures. The next category is under facilities, and this is a little bit along the same lines, but business continuity plan. So in case we do have disruption for some reason in our ability to continue business resumption, we did develop a plan. That plan has been dated now, so that's on Todd's radar once we get a little bit further into the NetSuite, but it is something that needs to be updated.
Yeah, there's not going to be significant turnover anymore.
Yes, we hope that will tail. availability of capital, a lack of affordable capital to fund non-discretionary projects. This is something that's before the finance committee and discussions of, we have a facilities master plan. We know that there is a lot of interest in maintaining the infrastructure as well as looking at new opportunities. We want to make sure we have access to capital. Along that same category, if there's any kind of disruption in coupon payments from the mutuals. And one of the things we've done is increased our business interruption insurance coverage, 5 million to 30 million. Looking to minimize that, the long term, that is exposure that went on. Membership transfer fee. This is one that also has kind of come to pass a little bit, where there is a reduction in the fee in terms of the amount of sales. And this is another one that the finance committee is discussing right now. We have options. The medical center property that we own outside the gate, I don't know that it's a risk, but a potential opportunity. We do need to decide what to do with that property fairly soon. We've been doing some studies, but it needs to come to a conclusion because it's now been sitting since 2019. We know that Rossmore is built on ridges and so forth, so the concern over landslide. This is something we've experienced just during the last major storms we had in 2023. We had some significant landslides, but it could impact housing. There is kind of joint ownership of some of those and concerns. So some of the options are geologic hazard abatement district, or just further analysis of the exposure as well. Under financial, lack of reserves in the trust fund, we have been building up a reserve over the last many years. We're at 3.75 million this year, and it's supposed to cap out at 4 million. That will help if there is unidentified things that come up, but under a major loss where we only have minimal coverage, that may be useful, but only goes so far. So this is one that was really a major concern a while ago, and I'm sure will resurface in the near future or at some point in the future. But we've been fortunate to in the drought, but we were in a prolonged drought that was resulting in concern over lack of irrigation water for the golf course. Many of the mutuals have undertaken turf reduction programs. GRF has done a significant amount of turf reduction. We looked into a satellite wastewater, I forget what the R is, facility, reuse facility, for a long time. That was determined to be very costly, and then operating was very costly. So now the focus is more on, is there regional solutions to bring recycled water or to the region. Golf course bridges is something that we're tackling kind of one at a time through our capital project, but all of the bridges on the course need to be replaced over a staggered period of time. This is one that comes up quite a bit and is part of the board's goals that they come up with periodically, but challenges in communication. This is a big one for Rossmore, and how do you continue the communication efforts to make sure people have the right information? There are several resources. We're looking at adding a significant one in My Rossmore, but continue to look at efforts for different modes of communication besides just the newspaper. This is one that we're looking at with the marketing task force, but continued competition from other senior communities and different business models that those may bring and amenities offerings. So continue to look at those to make sure that we are an attractive community that continues to thrive. And then the trust agreement expires in 2034 currently. So looking at that, that expiration would be a significant exposure to obviously Golden Rain Foundation as well as the mutuals. So extending that agreement is a high priority before we get to 34. Lack of board succession, lack of interest in serving on the boards. I talk about this a lot, but Rossmore really is a volunteer-driven community in terms of governance, in terms of work on committees, and that takes a lot of effort on your behalf in terms of recruiting and maintaining interest from volunteers. We've talked about insurance and the mortgage crisis quite a bit. Made the paper again this weekend. Human resources, one of the things we've talked about these next two items, we're in a different employment marketplace since the pandemic in terms of the types of employees, the transient nature of employees. Certainly, we have seen compensation increase significantly. So staying competitive, being able to attract and retain employees. So working with the comp committee and working with our HR department, identifying different avenues to continuously recruit, retain employees. Everything we do is service oriented, so it takes the folks to be here. Transition continuity, those are along the same lines. Employee strike, we have in our union contract that there's no strike clause, so I think we are safe on that one. This comes up quite a bit, and every time there's a nixle about power outage, this comes up in concern over underground infrastructure. GRF or Rossmore was one of the first communities to actually have underground utilities as far as PG&E. That infrastructure is getting dated, but those are all really at the discretion of the utilities, except for once they cross onto an actual mutual property, depending on what the utility is, if it's water, sewer, or power. Computer vulnerabilities, obsolescence. We are definitely moving up our cybersecurity, and we talked about that, I believe, the last go around. And then certainly moving to new systems such as NetSuite. Infrastructure within the mutuals. We obviously GRF trying to keep our facilities updated, but we're dealing with housing from the early 60s in some cases, and the ability to keep up with the housing so that we have a balance between the housing that's offered and the amenities that are offered is critical. With 23 different boards, you always have a risk there. We talked about board leadership. This is board leadership on the mutuals. We obviously have a very intertwined relationship with the mutual boards in terms of not only the trust agreement, but the management agreement, the services that GRF provides for the benefit of the mutuals. There is always a risk of one or multiple or all mutuals or that relationship being in jeopardy at some point. This one has to do with the Rossmore News and really maintaining the ability to have a printed newspaper. As you all know, most newspapers are going digital now. There is good reason why we maintain both, but our ability to actually print and maintain both is concerned. We talked about cyber attack, kind of maintaining that security. The landscape, the fire abatement, and looking at continuously, as John presented at a recent thing, the different levels of maintenance and fuel breaks around buildings. falling trees. We've experienced that in this community. But making sure that we continuously evaluate and work with the city on those. We've dealt with inflation. This is a new one that was added, and especially with all of the goods and services that we have to maintain and keeping the coupon in relation to rising inflation. Lack of civility, this was another one that was added, and you know, as we've kind of gone through an election cycle and the national pulse of the things, it certainly plays out within Rossmore in terms of civility. That also ties to communication and the importance of communication. An active shooter or terrorist type drill, we are doing those on about a 3-year cycle, and our public safety manager or director is going to be doing that again this year. We never think those types of things can actually happen within a community such as this, but they certainly can. We want to make sure we're paying attention to those types of threats as well. That concludes the items. Happy to go back and discuss anyone individually, or if there's additional exposures that you would like to add, do that as well.
Jeff, I have one question. The one, maybe it's covered somewhere, is affordability, because I know people who are moving out because they say they can't afford it anymore. So I think that's a significant risk. Maybe the marketing folks is discussing that. But that's the one risk I hear. I know a couple of people who are moving out because they just can't afford it.
That falls a little bit under the inflation and some of the marketing, so it's sprinkled, but maybe it needs to be independent item just because it's.
Jeff, when you mentioned we were in the paper this week, I missed that. I saw something in the paper. and I
Had
don't know
to
what we
do
were
with
to.
communities that
Yeah,
have the
okay.
highest rate of
Yeah.
all cash
Well, that was
buyers.
one.
Yeah.
And there we were, 94595,
Mhm.
highest all cash purchases.
Which they,
Chronicle, I don't know, what was it, East Bay Times maybe?
I can forward it, I don't know.
Yeah, it was, I think, either Chronicle or East Bay Times. Because we were at the top of the list, and I just thought, I mean, it was an anomaly, because you looked at all the other, kind of really rich places, and it,
Hmm.
it's because people who can manage to come in here, they're mostly all cash buyers, so.
As I was looking over this weekend, it occurred to me that there is a GRF risk that was not included, and that has to do with internal controls and potential inadequacy. There's really 3 different ways. The internal control could exist but need improvement. There could be a lack of any internal control over a given process, or there could be too much internal controls and they need to be get rid of. So I took it upon myself to draft a proposed addition to the list. And I'd like to go over that with you if I could. What I would suggest is, the list of risks in the enterprise risk management plan include the whole topic of internal controls and potential adverse consequences that they have. So, again, this is my own draftsmanship, and it's completely open to your suggestions, improvements, and changes. But proposed solutions would be to procure the internal audit that we plan for 2026, and then to analyze those results and implement the recommendations, which would require us to do exactly what we discussed earlier at this meeting. Go ahead and get an RFP, contract with a competent source, have them carry out the audit, which would have to be probably budgeted, evaluate the results, and then implement the recommendations. I briefly summarized the progress in the past that this committee did recommend an internal audit. The board did approve one. It has been appropriately postponed because of the GRF and NetSuite efforts. And the process in place right now, we're going to work forward to develop an RFP and have the audit proceed in 2026. So what I would propose, if the committee is in agreement, is that I can make a motion to that effect, that we formally recommend to Jeff and to the board that they include this risk among the others in their ERM plan.
Copy of this electronically, you can.
Yes,
Yeah, perfect.
If you could send that to me, that'd be most helpful.
yes.
And actually, while we're talking about that, we've had several items that we should be sending to Deborah as a follow-up. And then would you include them as additions to this agenda?
Yes, so anytime you present materials that are not included in the agenda packet, just FYI, and they're presented during the meeting, if you could send them to me from my office to have on record. And please let me know if you want them attached to the agenda packet. Otherwise, we keep it in our files as reference to the minutes so that any residents who read these minutes can refer to it and go, well, where is that inferred document? Thank you.
I think for these additional documents we've gone over in this meeting, we would want them attached to the agenda so that the members can view them.
So Mayor, did you make a motion?
Unless someone wants to do the wordsmithing right now.
I'm just clarifying because we need a second.
That we take this proposed possible risk management addition and recommend it to management and to the board.
You want to include in that Dan's recommendation to separate out affordability as an item.
We can do that, or we can do that. It's just something which is going to be easier to.
Yeah, I think that would be a separate item because, again, it doesn't fit in with the internal controls.
Yeah, it would be a separate
Right.
item, but I'm just saying within one motion.
Well, you have to make a motion.
But we got a motion here, so
Yep.
if that doesn't have a second.
Mhm.
Second. Well, okay, Ellen has a second on that. So then we need discussion or then take a vote on.
Carrie, just amend the motion to say, and affordability somewhere in there.
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay,
And I will send you the link electronically to you, Deborah.
I'd just like to comment, Jeff. Speaking just for myself, I thought that that summary, I went through it in quite some detail. I took some time and I thought it was very well done. And I think it pretty much hits the mark. My biggest worry is how do we really build up the mutuals to the level that maybe some of them need to be? But having said that, I think it's being addressed and I think it's, it's an ongoing issue anyway. But I just thought think it's well done and I think if we continue to go with it, it's a very useful thing for the organization. So for what it's worth.
Appreciate that.
I'd like to add that I think the management and the board have done tremendous progress in ERM. Back in 2019, when I first started working with the audit committee, GRF didn't have an ERM program of any sort. And from that beginning to the very comprehensive list that we have now and the amount of thought and effort that's gone into it is
We've come a long
really,
way.
Okay, so there's a motion here on the table to recommend to the GRF board that they include the language proposed regarding the internal controls and also adding a separate consideration for affordability into the risk management, the enterprise risk management plan. So, Chair, do you want me to call the roll here?
Let's call a roll.
Okay, wait a minute, I gotta get a sheet of paper, sorry. Okay, Ben Bernstein
Yes.
and Alan Smith,
Yes.
David Hickey.
Yes.
Susan Hildreth, yes. Merrick Lipson.
yes.
Mark Neiman.
Yes.
Dan Ring.
Yes,
Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Okay, well, the additional item that I had, and let's consider it.
Amazing how much paper we have still.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when you're playing.
Right, Todd?
The annual report. Oh, okay.
Yes.
What is
Okay.
The draft annual report.
Oh, no,
I
yes.
want to give it up, but
Yeah, I have.
there you go. Oh, yeah, let's
Yeah,
give that
there we
to
go.
Deborah.
Okay.
Deborah,
Yeah,
you
your copy.
give it to Deborah.
You gotta send it one electronically.
What line is
Right, and any, yeah.
It's not on here. Well, he mentioned it in his announcement, so
You
we
can't
can't.
talk about anything that's not on the agenda.
Oh,
We
okay,
have it already.
all right. Well, then I'll just, yeah, I wasn't planning to go through this, anyway. Just mentioned that, it'll be attached and, please take a look at it, and give me any comments.
You wanted attached.
It'll be attached to, the agenda.
To the minutes.
Yes. Well,
Well, so, okay, usually what happens to the minutes is you look at it and then Deborah puts it as part of the packet and the minutes are sent out to you all before the meeting, so you don't get them immediately. If you would like feedback on this, then this meeting. And it's not on the agenda, but couldn't you send it to the committee and?
okay, then I'll just send it to the.
Isn't that the best way to go? Okay.
But then is it possible but when I send it to you, to have it attached to?
No,
The-
because this item shouldn't even be talked about during this meeting whatsoever. Because it's not on the agenda. So if you want it for a discussion on the future agenda and you'd like to task your committee to review it and ask for feedback personally directly to you without a group response, since it's no deliberation offline, you may do so and add it for discussion on your next meeting agenda.
Could Ben, as a part of the announcement, say that he would be sending to the
Absolutely. And the minute.
And then after.
So that'll be an item for the minutes. I'll be sending it out. Yes, because I want to get any comments back, prior.
Because
To
you want
a
to submit
board meeting.
this about February 27th,
Right, yes.
so we're not gonna be meeting again after.
Right, yeah, and I don't.
but we don't
see
need
that.
it. We don't need that.
We
We
don't
can
need
send
that.
you our responses. This is from you. We don't need
Right.
a vote or anything like
Right.
that.
Okay, this is from you,
Yeah,
okay,
that was my basic.
Yeah, it doesn't
Okay.
need a vote.
Okay.
all right.
Well, barring any other items, I think, our meeting is concluded and, our next
Okay.
meeting now will be, April 21st. All right,
And you'll let us know, we'll need to get a room.